So our first conversation, our roundtable, is on how to produce or how to have a good a pitch, a TV idea that makes sense and that can be marketable. Today, I'm very happy to introduce 4 of my panelists that will be able to give us their insights, their expertise, and their do's and don'ts, and all of the possible trappings that a young comedian or a young content creator should avoid at all times. My first panelist is Émilie Corriveau.
Bonjour.
Hello. Directrice principale au développement à la Télévision, Juste pour rire. I also have Marina Di Pancrazio with me, Chief Content Revenue Officer. Hello, Marina.
Hello.
For Just for Laugh as well. I have Spencer Griffin, a third from Just for Laugh, Head of TV Development. Hi, Spencer.
Hello.
And finally, I have Jennifer Chen, who's Head of Studios and VP of Content at Channel Zero. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
So I feel that before we get into the do's and don'ts and a lot of intricate questions, the very first question we should ask is, what if I am a content creator, a young comedian, and I think I have a wonderful idea? What comes next? What do I do with it? Anyone can take it away.
Spencer, do you want to start? I think you're good at this.
Me?
Yes.
You say me?
Yes, I say you.
Yeah, I would say if you have a really good idea, you need to come up with 5 more really good ideas. Because your first really good idea has probably been thought of by 1,000 other people. Unless it's from a very specific point of view, an underrepresented voice, that's really valuable. But if it's just a fun idea that a lot of people could come up with, you need to keep digging and finding a lot more ideas. So that way, when you do end up having a conversation with somebody like us on the panel, when we go, oh yeah, that's fun, we already have something like that. What else do you have? That you have an answer for something that you're excited about. That would be my first thing. And I can yield the floor, but I have more.
So Spencer, I think, you know what, make sure you research your show to make sure that it doesn't already exist. I think that's fundamentally, and to Spencer's point, you know, when you have a good idea, if you're going to be fleshing it out, you know, and eventually want to pitch someone, that's where he suggests having a second idea, because if it doesn't fly, you want to always have something in your back pocket. But if you do have an idea and you think it's original, you've done your research, the next thing is to try to study a similar show idea. So if you're working on a factual show, if you've got a comedy, if it's a sitcom, what closely resembles, I would say study. Watch the good and the bad, what works, what doesn't work, and before you start putting it down on paper. And if you don't know how to pull together a pitch, right, where you're starting with like the basics of, you know, a log line, you know, if you can't describe your story in, you know, a quick log line sentence, the premise of your show, then you need to refine that and build it towards the next thing, which is a synopsis and all that fun stuff. But that stuff you can get online on how to pitch it.
I was going to say, I think putting pen to paper, it helps the creator streamline and focus their thoughts on where they want to go and what they want to do with it. And then, of course, everyone else has shared their insights. But most importantly, speaking to your log line, Marina, I like it when that log line is a description of other shows, so that in one sentence, you get an idea of what your show is going to be about, what that flavor is, what the tone is, maybe what the story is like, but definitely pulling in several different examples so that you can convey that message quickly, very quickly.
Do you want to give an example, Jen?
Like this show is a mix between this show.
Yeah,
and
Golden
show.
Girls meets The
Exactly.
Sopranos.
Yeah.
Okay. Good example.
Maybe not that show.
I mean, I might be interested actually, but okay.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, actually, I can see that.
Yeah. But basically exactly that, pulling that show with, you know, but it's going to look like Big Bang Theory. So a ton of descriptors that'll help convey the message quickly.
Yes, I would. Do you want to add something, Spencer? Or
No, go ahead.
Okay.
No, we'll come back around.
Do you want to go in French or in English?
You
En
choose.
français, peut-être, juste pour donner un peu une chance
ouais.
à nos francophones. J'allais dire, souvent, en fait, les gens pensent qu'ils ont des idées, comme le disait Spencer au départ, mais c'est un flash. Un flash, c'est pas une idée. Il y a beaucoup de gens qui ont des flashs. Donc, il faut étendre votre idée, il faut la développer, il faut la travailler. Un bon truc, c'est de la partager avec des gens avec qui vous avez confiance, bien évidemment. Ne la partagez pas à tout le monde, mais essayez d'expliquer votre idée, essayez de la rendre le plus claire possible. Puis, une fois que vous allez la mettre sur papier, déjà, ça va être plus clair dans votre tête. Puis, le lecteur, quand il va recevoir votre idée aussi, ça va être beaucoup plus clair pour lui.
Yeah, I think Shonda Rhimes says that the difference between an idea and a premise is an idea is, I want to make a show about gangsters. And the premise is, I want to make a show about a gangster who has to go to therapy every week, you know?
Exactly.
And so there's a difference. There's a bit of flavor and you get the concept. Spencer,
Totally.
you're going to say?
Yeah. No, the other thing I would say is like find out what is the thing that makes your show truly special, because what is it that makes you excited about it, and what is it that's going to make me excited about it? That's really, really special, because everybody has a workplace comedy set at this zany office, whatever. Like, what is it about that show that is special to you? And try to find a way to articulate that in a sentence, more than just articulating the plot of your idea, of what will get everybody excited and make them go, oh, holy crap, I got to read this.
And Spencer, I agree. You have to be excited about the idea that you're pitching, and it's not just an idea that you think would be a great, you know, like what people want to hear. Because if your show does go, you're going to be stuck doing that show, and there's nothing worse than not liking the show you're working on.
OK, on commence déjà avec beaucoup de points, beaucoup de affaires à ne pas faire, beaucoup d'éléments à ouvrir. Mais en fait, je me dis, si je suis nouvellement, je suis comédienne depuis 1 an, 2 ans, ou peut-être que j'ai fait l'École nationale de l'humour en tant qu'auteur, qu'est-ce qui se passe? Je pense que j'ai une idée, j'écris quelque chose qui, selon moi, fait du sens, je la montre à des amis, d'accord. Ensuite, à quel moment ça devient réellement une idée qui a un potentiel d'affaires? À quel moment c'est pas juste moi qui fait un peu un journal intime un peu sur plusieurs pages? I'm just wondering how does this become an actual business idea and not just you writing down your feelings about how you liked working in an office and how it was a bit zany, as you put it.
I think that it's important to have all the elements, just like anything else. Make sure you have the elements. If you believe in your TV show, you've done the research, you can get all of this stuff online on what a pitch consists of, and they'll talk to you about the short synopsis, long synopsis, log line, the Bible. Make sure that you have at least an idea of that. You have some of those elements, maybe even a Bible, and it's always, I always say, important to know how your show's going to end, your idea is going to end. You don't have to have it all written out. You could write out a pilot episode, like sometimes you're really inspired, have the elements, and then you essentially have 2 options, right? You could approach a network, which could be very difficult, right? Because if you're nobody, you're a brand new person, the other thing is to pitch producers as well, production companies. Je vais laisser aussi à Émilie. Emily, if you can talk a bit about also from the French experience.
Du côté québécois, en fait, je dirais que la façon la plus simple, c'est d'approcher un producteur. Pour savoir le producteur que vous souhaitez approcher, regardez un peu les productions qu'ils font. Quelque chose qui, en fait, quand vous voyez des séries ou des projets qui vous intéressent, essayez d'approcher ces gens-là, d'identifier les bonnes personnes. Généralement, ce sont soit des gens au développement ou des producteurs au contenu. C'est ces gens-là que vous voulez approcher. Très mauvaise idée de contacter tout le monde dans la compagnie. Ça arrive. On est 12 à recevoir le même courriel. Ça, c'est pas le fun. On essaie de cibler les bonnes personnes. Ça, c'est le premier exercice. Essayez de contacter directement les diffuseurs au Québec. Ça fonctionne moins, à moins que vous soyez déjà connu. Si vous êtes Rachid Badouri, par exemple, vous pouvez probablement aller voir le diffuseur seul. Mais si vous êtes un newcomer, ça va être plus difficile d'approcher un diffuseur. Donc, le producteur, c'est le premier step. Ça se peut que vous n'ayez pas une bonne entente. Il y a des mauvais fits, puis c'est correct. Vous avez le droit, dans le fond, de faire « c'était peut-être pas pour moi, je vais en essayer un autre ». La bonne nouvelle, c'est que c'est pas parce qu'on vous dit non une fois que c'est fini.
OK. Donc, dans ton expérience, parce que étant en développement, des gens qui viennent te pitcher, t'en as beaucoup.
Souvent, oui.
C'est une partie intégrale de ton travail.
Oui.
Qu'est-ce que toi, tu décrirais comme il faut absolument que vous ne fassiez jamais ça, ou au contraire, je veux m'assurer qu'à chaque fois que quelqu'un vient dans mon bureau ou je le rencontre, je dois entendre tel truc, je dois entendre A, B, C, D.
Bien, les jamais, en fait, c'est un peu ce qu'on décrivait tantôt, là. Donc, penser qu'un flash, c'est une idée développée, ça, c'est une erreur commune, là. Ça arrive souvent, les gens qui n'en ont pas fait beaucoup. Donc, ça, c'est un jamais. Les absolument, j'en ai pas tant que ça, dans le sens que ça varie. Il y a des gens avec qui, par exemple, j'ai une conversation préliminaire, ils pensent qu'ils ont une idée, mais ils ne l'ont pas encore développée, ils ne savent pas trop comment. On fait juste discuter, puis ensuite, ils sont capables de mettre leur idée sur papier. Est-ce que c'est tous les producteurs qui ont cette ouverture-là? Non, je ne pense pas. Le marché de Spencer et Marina et de Jen est beaucoup plus difficile à percer que le nôtre. Donc, ouais, voilà. Pour moi, il n'y a pas d'absolu oui, mais c'est sûr qu'une idée qui est bien écrite, bien structurée, ça va tout de suite plus m'interpeller qu'une idée pour laquelle j'ai de la misère à décoder, en fait.
Ouais, de comprendre le
langage. Exactement,
là.
voilà.
On va poser la question de votre côté aussi. Do's and don'ts of a newcomer coming up to your office, sitting on the opposite side of the table and trying to pitch to you.
Work with somebody else's work. That's really important. If somebody comes in and says, "Oh, I really like this show you worked on," I immediately like their pitch better than if they come in and have no idea. So that's a big do. Is know your audience is basically that.
Jen?
That's my big do too. I can't stress enough how critical it is to know your audience. And I come also from the broadcast side where you're going to pitch to a network. You want to know what's in their schedule right now, who their target demographic is, what the flavor of that program, what the flavor of that network is. You want to know all of that because you're conscientious of that person's time, and you're not going to pitch them a show that they can never greenlight. So you want to be respectful of their time by doing the research and knowing what they are looking for. So I think that's key. Like the big do's and don'ts is really know your audience and don't not know that audience. That's for me the what I find in a lot of these when you meet with emerging creators, they love their ideas so much, which is wonderful because you've got that passion for the story. And then it's hard for them to put themselves in the other person's shoes who's looking for a kind of content. So I think the mutual respect for that audience is critical.
Yeah, and I'll echo that too. And I will echo too that one of the most depressing, and this has happened more than once, depressing pitches that I get from newcomers is they're talking to you about their idea. And I'm like, oh, this sounds like this show or this show. And then someone tells you, I actually don't watch that much TV, but this show is going to be different.
Yeah.
It's kind of like going to a shoemaker that doesn't really fix shoes. Like you want to bring your stuff to someone. So no, it always goes back to, yes, study shows. If you want to make it show, study shows that are like yours. Yes, study the market, but even study the producer.
Exactly.
Like if you're going to be coming to a producer with, a business show and it's a super heavy duty investigative, to JFL, we're going to be like, so what is funny about this?
Yeah,
and where are we going
exactly.
with this? It has to have a meaning and they have to marry. Don't just whip things against the wall and hoping something's going to stick. Because trust me, our world, yes, I know, Émilie, you said the French market's small. Believe it or not, our market's small too, and people talk because anytime someone's like really out there, like you'll make the rounds,
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
I would also say focus on the idea and what you bring to the table, like why this idea, why now,
why
and
you,
less about why you, why this, why now, and less about the business case. Don't worry about budget. Don't worry about branded marketing. Don't worry about all that stuff is after the fact.
Yeah.
Because that only comes into play if you like the idea and you can sell it. And so I don't need anybody to tell me about budget. That's what I do for a living. I need people to bring me excellent ideas, and then I will figure out the budget part.
And unless you have someone attached, don't spew names, don't use music. You have to be careful because people, you don't know what people's relationships with a song or music is, or even with an actor. So unless you could say, it'll be these type of actors, but if you're hanging your hat and using it does paint a picture. And if that person doesn't like the actor, you kind of could be shooting yourself in the foot,
That's interesting. We have a few questions from the public. The first one is, are you more inclined to take risk, or do you like something more conventional in terms of when someone comes up to you? Like you said, it's comforting to know that this is Sons of Anarchy meets Golden Girls. But what if the person comes and says, this is unheard of, I have reinvented the genre? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's more maybe reassuring to hear?
With
current trends.
I like risk.
I like risk too, but
yeah, I think everybody likes risk, but right now current trends in the market are established IP. And that you could say, during times of pandemic and in really high stress, people like to go to a sure thing. So that's why you have Gossip Girl, like the second reiteration. But I think in terms of trends right now, it is a much more established trends. It's more established programming, if you will, like things that people recognize. But I think that it always boils down to the idea. Stranger Things was told that it wasn't, was too unique, and yet someone did it, and then it's a hit, and now everybody's trying to find the next Stranger Things, but using Stranger Things as the model, right?
Yeah. I would say if you want to take risks, you also need to be flexible, because maybe the producer is going to like your idea, but he's going to ask you for a little more comfort, and you need to be open to it because it's needed to convince a broadcaster.
I think if the story and the voice is authentic and it's out there, I would prefer that over established, because if it's established, there's going to be bigger players who are already developing established.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what you really want when you're emerging is like a unique voice, a unique perspective. You've heard it already, but that's what I would prefer in a pitch.
Yeah.
Don't try to imitate someone's tone or do a spec script imitating someone. It has to be your voice too. Yeah, Jen, I agree.
Okay. We have another question. This one is from Samuel, and he says, with your knowledge, how long do you need to hear a pitch to know if you're going to like it, or if this is something you should keep listening to?
Like the first minute, 20 seconds.
About a minute and a half.
Yeah.
You're generous,
happens,
Spencer.
Jen?
What happens
Jen?
in those 60 seconds? I mean, I'm very curious.
I think in a face-to-face meeting, it's a minute, could be
Less.
even long.
It's long.
Yeah,
kinda long.
30 seconds, I would say.
Yeah.
I would say it's because where at least where I sit is that if things go well and we sell a show, we're going to talk every day for 5 years. And are you a person that I want to talk to and who wants to talk to me every day for 5 years? And I've made television shows with people where we're just coworkers, and that's okay. But making a show is so hard, and it's hard to pitch the show. It's hard to write the show. It's hard to sell the show. It's hard to develop the show. It's hard to make the pilot. It's hard to get the pilot picked up the series. It's hard to wait for that series renewal. Like, all of that is really hard and at times very heartbreaking. And so you want to do it with somebody you like and trust. So first impressions are really important.
Yes.
And the way you approach a meeting is very important, because if there's instantly something that is like a red flag in terms of if it's a lie or if it's a misconception or just something that's just like, ooh, that's not the way to start a meeting, then I'm less likely to be interested in the pitch, because I'm going to have to talk to you every day.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the idea, you have to understand, we're TV people. We watch a lot of TV and we read a lot of scripts and get pitched a lot of stuff. So we'll know within that first minute, whether it's like dating, seriously, like, when you first walk into it, like, you're like, yeah, this is going to work. This is not going to work. But in terms of the idea, really, you'll know, because you'll be like, yeah, this is Sons of Anarchy. And then, so then you'll be like, well, how is this different? Like, what's your take? What is the different take, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
And I would like to add, if it's a written pitch, because it happens, like make sure it's really interesting, because a lot of people say their idea is interesting, but it's so boring to read.
Oh.
So make sure, like, every sentence is interesting to read.
Is a punch.
I don't want to fall asleep when I'm reading your pitch.
Okay.
It happens.
Yeah, because your unique story about your grandmother is interesting to you because it's
Yep.
your grandmother. I have my own grandmother that I'm interested in. I'm not innately interested in your grandmother or whatever the subject of your story is. So find a way to describe your show, not just from your perspective on why you think it's great, but why I think it would be great.
We have a very interesting question that I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you. So we were discussing a bit prior how the industry, either from a Quebec market standpoint or an international one, they have specific needs, or at least we know that there's a trend about established product that comes through. But we have a question here to ask, is it even worth fighting if we are of the LGBTQIA or BIPOC? Like, seeing that television seems to want something established, something that's a bit more, I'll say, traditional, in quotes. What happens with someone like our there's no name, but who's asking, are you more inclined to say yes to a pitch that has that represents LGBTQIA and BIPOC people, or are you more maybe fearful, or do you think that it won't go through as easily?
I think everybody's looking for those stories right now. Like, we don't have enough of those stories right now. Everybody wants that new perspective voice from those communities. And I don't think there's enough stories written well to take to the market. So definitely, I mean, it's the golden era for BIPOC and LGBTQ stories. Like right now, it's happening right now.
Yeah.
Do you find
And it all boils down to
time.
idea. Yeah. And it all boils down to, again, unique ideas, having a point of view, really making things that resonate, but at a unique level, not just copy what's already out there.
And I think those opinions are true for the international market, but I'd love to hear from Émilie, because Québec is such a specific and unique.
It's such a specific. Je vais parler en français, parce
Bien
que
sûr.
voilà. Donc oui, les télédiffuseurs québécois cherchent ce contenu. La difficulté souvent, c'est qu'ils essaient aussi d'être généralistes. Donc il faut trouver un point de vue qui soit intime, particulier, authentique, mais qui soit capable de rejoindre une communauté. Et souvent, elle est là, la difficulté. Mais est-ce qu'il y a de la demande? Est-ce qu'il y a de l'ouverture? Absolument. Moi, je veux recevoir ces histoires. Ça m'intéresse. Puis vraiment, je vous le dis, tous les télédiffuseurs sont à la recherche de ces histoires-là. C'est important qu'elles soient portées jusqu'à eux, en fait.
Est-ce qu'il n'y a pas une contradiction qui existe spécifique au Québec,
Oui.
où on dit on veut avoir plus d'histoires qui représentent tout le monde.
Oui.
En même temps, comme on veut être généraliste, ben dans les faits, la majorité, elle est blanche, elle est en région et elle n'est pas...
Oui.
En tout cas, elle ne semble pas
La vérité, c'est qu'il y a du travail à faire, Isabelle. Tu as tout à fait raison.
Fait que je me demande juste, comment est-ce que toi, en tant que productrice, comment est-ce que tu fais la part des choses en disant, ben je veux rejoindre tout le monde, mais en même temps, je veux pas non plus diluer l'intégrité artistique
Oui.
ou même la voix unique qu'on n'arrête pas de décrire ici depuis tout à
Oui.
l'heure. On cherche de l'unicité, on cherche quelque chose qui est vraiment propre à la voix de la personne. Fait que comment est-ce que tu réconcilies tout ça?
Ben, il y a plusieurs choses là-dedans. Là. On pourrait faire 2 heures là-dessus. Mais d'abord, dans les séries de fiction, dans les personnages, il y a essayé d'écrire des rôles ou de donner des rôles à des gens de ces communautés, en fait, qui incarnent pas juste une personne de cette communauté, dans le sens que le rôle doit être plus grand. T'sais, on veut pas, ce qu'on a déjà vu dans des scripts, là, personne noire. Non, c'est pas ça qu'on veut. On veut que le rôle soit un rôle entier, à part entière. Donc, ça, c'est une des choses, dans le fond, qui est en train de se passer. On le sait, la représentativité est beaucoup plus importante du côté anglophone. Là. C'est plus achevé, on va dire comme ça. Mais il y a vraiment une volonté. Donc, ce genre de choses, on y porte beaucoup attention. Puis, quand ce sont des projets, en fait, qui portent une voix spécifique, bien là, la question, c'est vers quel diffuseur on les dirige, comment est-ce qu'on peut s'assurer que la voix demeure authentique, qu'on modifie pas trop le discours non plus, mais qu'on aide cette personne-là à rendre ce discours public. Fait qu'il y a comme deux sortes de travail. Dans le fond, il y a rendre plus général, plus accessible, plus quotidien. Dans le fond, toutes ces voix-là. Puis il y a aussi travaillé à ce que les spécificités soient portées à l'écran.
Comment ça se passe?
De mieux en mieux, heureusement. Mais de mieux en mieux, mais c'est pas facile. Puis moi, je demande juste à ce qu'on éduquez-moi. Je veux dire, je suis super ouverte, puis je pense que je suis pas la seule.
De votre côté, Marina et Jennifer, vous ressentez aussi une juxtaposition ou bien une espèce un parallèle avec un marché qui n'est pas québécois, mais peut-être qui est canadien ou qui est américain?
And I'll include Spencer in this. So, yeah, Spencer, the question was, do you find that broadcasters in the States and Canada are much more open to diversity on the screen or diversity creators? I think that the wave has, it started a while ago. I know even in my past life, I worked for an American company. They were very focused on diversity in front of the screen. And now it's gone behind the screen too. So I think for a long time on American television, you saw the diversity on the screen, but behind the screen, it was still very white, very male mostly. But, I think of late, it started to turn. And so I'd say that's my piece. Jen, what do you think? Do you think that same or?
I do. I agree. And I think, when we look at some of the opportunities with the global streamers, what they're discovering is that even a very localized, non-English language, let's say, or non-local language show can have global success across many territories. So in regards to the diversity in front and behind the camera, those unique stories are available. And I think that will extend on certain platforms even to different languages and different cultures. So I think I can't stress enough, I think there's no better time right now than to have those unique perspectives. And as Marina said, in front and behind the camera, it's right now.
Yeah.
Speaking of the international market, I think that I'd like to know how someone, let's say that's in Montreal right now, that did the Zoofest festival with us and that is watching this and that is wondering, all right, I think I understand what they're saying. I think I'll go back and, scratch my first, second, and third idea and then finally write the one I think is, properly structured. I have my log line, I have my synopsis, I know how to pitch, I've researched Émilie, I've researched Spencer, I'm ready. Now, if that person says, you know what, I don't think my product is for the Quebec market. I think I'm speaking for a larger audience or maybe a very specific one that is,
somewhere else.
Like a Portuguese or however. What is there a different avenue or a different path to take for that same person to try to get that pitch into a TV show eventually? Like how does one go about from trying to sell an idea to a local market versus an international one?
So there's two things. Spencer, you're going to say something.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's two things. I mean, if you think your idea is going to sell in Portugal, I would say, Canada has multiple co-production treaty partners. So I would partner with a producer. Like there's a lot of things that the government does for us. You can look up their co-production treaty. You have a list of co-production treaty partners. So you could talk to someone in Portugal. I think Portugal is, a co-treaty partner, and talk to producers there about your idea. The other thing is, there's also an international market for our content, right? But like Jen was saying, there are some that have worked on streamers. I think if you look, the majority of them have been action adventure. So it's, yes, they're in a different language, but there's a lot going on too. It's not just a story that's very, that you really need to be ingrained in the society to understand what it is. So it's much broader story and a broader appeal. But if someone's looking to work with another partner in a different country, In Canada, we have the opportunity to do that as co-treaty partnership.
I would suggest if you're looking at, that kind of project, one of the things I would first recommend is going to one of these international markets where you're going to meet other producers, a 3-day, 4-day conference for producers and creators where they can partner. And that's where those co-production relationships can grow and develop. And so I think the easiest way, and I'm not even saying it's that easy, but is to register for one of these markets and book, try your best to book time with producers and broadcasters or other exhibitors who would be interested in the kind of content that you've created. And to Marina's point, there is a lot of government support for emerging creators to go to these markets and these conferences because they're not cheap. So you can get some support and get over there. And I think that's the best way to build international relationships is at these international forums.
And what's great is they prep you, right, Jen? So they tell you what you need to apply. Like there's an application process. So basically your kit gets put together in an organized fashion because usually to take part in them, you have to submit a certain amount of documents in a specific order. And so you have something that you're going to be entering there with something.
And actually building on that, as an emerging creator, I would almost say if you're trying to test material and you're still an unknown creator, there are a lot of there'll be screenwriting competitions through festivals and conferences like Zoofest. This is where you go and you meet other people, and there are different programs where you can test out your writing, and a little bit of notoriety through the, I want to say, festival or conference circuit is something that you have versus nothing when you take your first meetings with producers and broadcasters. So when I think of all the programs that are available through the CMF, through Telefilm, this is in Canada. Sorry, Spencer. This is a great way for emerging artists to get recognized and to get help to better develop their projects. I know also in the EU, media will have a lot of programs in the various countries as well.
Yeah. And don't forget, Fleabag was actually a fringe show, a fringe festival show, right?
Yeah, one-person play.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you never know.
Le marché québécois est souvent plus réaliste que fantastique. Est-ce que c'est parce qu'il n'y a pas de pitch plus fantastique ou que le consommateur québécois préfère du contenu qui est beaucoup plus dans du dramatique,
C'est plus compliqué que ça, mais il y a une question de fond. Souvent, ça coûte cher faire du fantastique. Puis les budgets le permettent souvent pas. Mais c'est pas impossible. La deuxième question, c'est que dans la fiction, souvent, on confie des fictions lourdes. Le fantastique tend à l'être ou à très petit... C'est comme un ou l'autre. Hein? On va pas comme dans le milieu. C'est très petit budget ou à gros budget. Puis quand c'est du gros budget, bien souvent, ces fictions-là sont confiées à des auteurs qui ont déjà fait leurs preuves.
D'accord.
Fait que voilà, c'est plus compliqué, mais est-ce que c'est impossible? Non. Surtout avec l'avènement, dans le fond, des multiplateformes. Là. Je pense, par exemple, à Nouveau, qui font plein de plus petits projets. C'est pas des productions à grand budget, sauf qu'il y a des possibilités, en fait, de se faire connaître dans un genre qui n'est pas nécessairement celui qu'on voit à la télé généraliste.
Ben, c'est perfect segue. Ça m'amène à mon autre question.
Écoute,
from
je l'avais
Samuel
prévu,
again.
Isabelle.
Thank you, Samuel, for being here. Who's asking, are you more fearful of embarking or, deciding to sign on a newcomer, an up-and-coming comedian, or a content creator that brings in a fresh idea, a fresh perspective? Because if it's, like you said, it's a bit fantastic or it has a bit of something that requires larger budget for the project to actually come to life, do you feel that it's a safer investment to go with someone a bit more experienced?
So broadcasters always want to have a name attached to a project. It does make it easier to pitch the show. So if a newcomer comes to us with a great idea and we have someone great that we think would be perfect for it, we will try to attach someone with experience, whether it's a showrunner or whatever, Spencer? Yeah.
Yeah, if you're hiring somebody to paint your house and there's somebody with 20 years experience painting houses, or somebody that says, no, trust me, I'm really good at painting houses, who are you more likely to hire?
But what if he says
similar.
that he has this new painting technique that the guy that has 20 years does not have? That's my point.
Even scarier. What is this new painting technique that only you know about?
Listen, he's young.
So if we see it and we love it, then in order to make it appealing to the broadcaster, we play matchmaker, again, dating and TV.
Because in the US market, we're talking about millions of dollars at risk, right? So who are they going to give the money to? It's somebody that they feel is going to be responsible with their money. And that's often not people who have never been in charge of that much money before, right? So that's why you bring on production companies like Just for Laughs or any other production company, or showrunners who have done that before, in order to make sure that the network is excited about giving you millions of dollars.
Yes,
which is what you're really asking for,
I mean, we have a young clientele and they're hopeful, they're dreamers. Yeah. So I feel like it's
absolutely.
But it goes back to the idea. If it's a great idea and we buy into it, a lot of production companies will match you to talent.
I'm wondering about controversial topics, because by default, comedy is there to go and kind of pinpoint, fragile areas, or, like just gray zones where the comedy will kind of like enlighten certain topics or truly shed light in a different way where you kind of reconsider a number of topics. So I'm wondering what happens if someone comes up with a pitch that technically is very simple, but the topics at hand truly are meant to kind of rock the boat on every possible front.
So that's two different questions, because if someone has an established brand like Dave Chappelle, that's a different show. If it's, Joe or Jane Doe who have a show and it's controversial and we don't understand the purpose of this, right? Because we don't have, then it becomes really a question. If, again, it boils down to, is this controversy portrayed in a way that is interesting and unique? And do we think that we have a broadcaster that, would pick up this baton? Like, would an HBO pick this on? Like, so basically the conversation is the same. I think if you're like a Dave Chappelle, or you are an established brand and you have a definite point of view, you're not, you can actually walk up to someone and do that show. But if you're an unknown or relatively unknown and you want to create a show like this, goes back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Unique idea. How are you dealing with this controversial? Is it just there to make noise, or is it hate? Is it just there to establish hate? Is it a hate group that's doing, like, what's the motivation behind this? Yeah. There has to be a reason for the controversy. Exactly. And that's not just controversial topics. That's like all topics, right? Yeah. Like, there has to be a motivation. It's like a story. What's the arc? Is it valuable to this?
Isabelle, I'd like to give you an example. We're producing a show in French. It's called Corde raide, or tightrope in English. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a controversial show. Like, comedians do bits on controversial topics. That's the whole show. But the show, like, the comedians, they are discussing as well. Like, they are having conversation with people in the audience about the topic, and those people are touched by the topic. Je vais le dire en français. Donc, dans le fond, il y a des panélistes, et puis les panélistes sont intimement touchés par les sujets qui sont abordés sur scène. Donc, il y a une conversation. So this is a way of doing it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's controversial, but like we found a way to do it. And it's interesting, and it's not hate, and, people get to discuss things, and it's an interesting way of doing it.
It creates a dialogue instead of just, so it doesn't just position one point of view with no opportunity to engage. But this particular show called Corde raide and tightrope actually does offer a dialogue opportunity between the panelists who are of that community and the comedian who is either telling a joke about that community or specific to them.
I'd like to also discuss briefly before we have to end this, because now most comedians are either actually are a number of things. They wear all the hats. They are content creators. They edit their own things. They are brand ambassadors. They do everything, and then they also do stand up. If a comedian comes up and says, you know what, I have a number of projects ahead of me, but I would like to pitch to you. I either have a kind of serialized content. I think it's a great idea and it would make for a great 10 episode something. I also have my comedy special that I'm trying to push forward. Is there a way in which you guys even make sense of so many hats that that new generation is wearing? How do you deal with someone that basically is like un homme orchestre?
So if someone comes to us with multiple ideas, is that what you're saying? The same performer and has multiple ideas for shows or
exactly. How do you make sense of what's the better business possibilities, or even how do you handle someone that is basically doing everything?
So I mean, if someone comes and says, "Hey, we want to do a comedy special," but they don't have a name, we'll tell them, "Look, comedy specials, unless you're huge, like, comedy specials are really reserved one-man shows for, known artists or something, right? Like, it depends. It's the market that eventually determines what is going to be pitched, I guess, if I have to say, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I love it when people are working a lot of different angles all at the same time. It shows capacity, it shows passion, it shows interest. There's an opportunity cost for a company for us to engage with somebody. So it's probably unlikely that we just for laughs will engage with somebody on 9 different things all at the same time, because ultimately that's 9 things we aren't engaging with somebody else on. So, I think it's what we do is evaluate what makes the most sense for us to engage with an artist on. But if I love log lines, I love log lines. So I love hearing, hey, here's the 4 different things I'm working on. Which one's a good fit?
Exactly.
And that way I get to pick what I think is the best fit for us.
Yeah.
And for us with the creator, right?
Yeah.
Where we can work well together.
Exactly. And sometimes the fit is not the one you would think of initially. Like, I've had comedians pitch me science show, and we actually developed science show with them because it's funny science shows, obviously. But they were thinking that I would be more interested in scripted shows and stuff like that. And it was like, oh, actually your science show seems more interesting to me. So you never know.
Truthfully.
Don't assume.
I mean, yes. I think that c'est la fin parfaite pour notre table ronde. If you could give your pearl of wisdom, just each of you just give an insight to what you feel like, if Samuel, especially, who's still here, who should retain information, what would you throw at them?
Study TV, watch it, good and bad, study the market, the trends, study your networks, refine your skills. That's more than one, but yeah.
All right, that's a good one, Marina. I'm going to say stay authentic and true to your own voice, and make sure your creation and your content is unique.
Really?
I would say it's going to take 10 years minimum. And so be patient with yourself. That the idea of you selling your first TV show you pitch would be amazing. And if you can do that, please email me. But otherwise, be patient with yourself, that it's not all going to happen overnight. And then it might take 30 pitches before somebody wants to take a meeting. You just have no idea. It's not, what's that word? It's not linear. It doesn't get better every year. It's up and down and up and down and up and down. So just be patient with yourself and give yourself a lot of love.
And take your time in between to refine your skills. Just keep working your craft.
Essayez, donc try. You have to try. If you don't try, you'll never know. And then also, I would say sometimes it's not the right moment for a project, but it could be the right moment in 2 years. Don't give up.
Yeah.
I mean, Samuel, this is for you.
Don't give up.
T'as toutes tes réponses.
And email me.
Yeah.
J'aimerais vous remercier d'avoir passé un peu de temps avec nous, d'avoir donné autant de conseils, autant d'encouragement aussi à une relève humoristique qui, moi, m'impressionne à tous les instants, à quel point ils sont prêts à tout, ils sont capables de tout, puis ils sont très créatifs. Fait que j'espère que vous les rencontrerez sous peu à travers le festival ou maintenant qu'ils connaissent vos noms et vos titres, ils pourront vous contacter directement. Je vous déprésente, question que tout le monde se rappelle bien de qui a parlé ce soir. Émilie Corriveau, merci beaucoup.
Ça me fait plaisir.
Marina Di Pancrazio, merci.
Merci.
Spencer Griffin, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And Jennifer Chen, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
This was Zoofest Roundtable, the first one out of 3. Stay tuned tomorrow, 6 p.m. for the next one on algorithms and discoverability. More to come. Thank you so much.